Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I am Karenann MacDonald, and we are so happy to have you guys here on this wonderful Friday evening. It's, I think, a long haul for a lot of people. There is so much stuff going on. Where do we start? A lot of people have not been feeling well. The rest of us down in the lower part of the states are all sitting there, are actually getting ready for a lot of people to be prepared for a ice out. Okay, so a lot of people here, I've seen that, we've gone through that before. It's not the first time up here. So, but one of the things that if you're not used to it, why would you be used to it in the lower part of the states? This is unheard of. This is one of the worst storms they've had in like, literally ages and ages and ages and decades. So it's not something a lot of people are quite used to preparing for, but, it's going to be a shock with some of the different weather warfare that we're experiencing, also some of the stuff to do with the pole shift. So I think it's a great reminder for a lot of people. This is actually a great time for people to start looking at what we need to be doing. And it never hurts to be prepared. I just can't get over. I've seen so many different people talking about what's on the shelves, what's not on the shelves. Do you have generators? Do you have like something to heat your house? Very, very important. These are just basics for people to, get by with these days. So having perishable foods is one thing. Having non-perishables is another that you can just add water to. So those are some of the things we need to, look at. A lot of people that are having a lot of trouble right now. And, we're expecting a lot of changes right now with people. There are so many things going on in their health. And I just also wanted to I just found out about it too. I wanted to extend my condolences and sympathies to Marilyn James and to the Sinixt tribes that are in the local areas here of what you guys would call British Columbia and north of Spokane into Washington with the Colville Confederated tribes and stuff like that. The Sinixt, these were autonomous Sinixt that were actually part of the hereditaries. And it's unfortunate that we see people succumb. So Therese just passed away. Actually, on my arrival date, she decided to leave. And as Marilyn said, she dropped her robe. She was one of the few people that through the colonization tried to bring back so much of the language. She helped with books. She started teaching her children. And she was quite well known in the area. But at 44 years, that's an awful lot of life that she had so much to live for. And so a lot of times people will say we're noticing cancers and stuff like that. But a lot of stuff, too, is that these cancers were exacerbated by those, things that you stuck up your nose and other things that they injected to themselves. And that's when the first things you have to catch right away and see what's going on. So, we send our condolences to that because, again, once you look at it, there's no other the oldest female. There's no matriarchal lineage left after that. And there is an example of, secure and autonomous and sovereign tribes that have been around that were actually declared extinct by Canada back in the 50s that have now lost, and they won't have a matriarch after this. So it's a sad thing. So Marilyn carries a lot of weight on her shoulders as well, for maintaining, the wildlife, the water, the land, trying to preserve the customs usages. And they've done a lot of books here. They're quite well known. So trying to preserve everything from clear cutting. So this is huge, So I just wanted to formally, as a clan mother, send out my condolences because, it's a wealth of information. One of the things I want to talk about today is water, but water is life. Water is our blood. That's everything right there. It's how we nourish our children in the womb, we're giving them that amniotic fluid and those waters, those cosmic primordial waters that we, have our children in for the 9 months. And again, it goes on and on. We never start mothering, but to have a child ripped away at such a young age, and knowing that what we know. And I've had the, wonderful times to be with the Sinixt in this area. And the Sinixt themselves are a very rare tribe left here. And, when you start looking at the tribal maps and everything, this is all the water that, they were protecting as well and still do all the way down to basically into what you call Washington. So that is protecting the entire Columbia water basin, system all the way through. So, it's quite a historical area. And I mean, there's nothing like, getting to know some of these people and going to some of the different ceremonies, the original customs, usages, and laws that Marilyn and Chief Bob Campbell and Rob and the rest of them were all sharing with me. When I first came out here, like, 10, 15 years ago, and then I'd go somewhere else and I'd come back and I'd go somewhere else. But I'll never forget one of the sweetest things Marilyn James ever said to me. And I was on my way out of here again, I think around 2015, 2016. And she gave me these pairs of sandals, and she gave me a case and some other things as well. But I looked at this with these sandals and I thought, okay, this is cool. And she just looked at me. She said, just remember, Karen, wherever you walk, I walk with you. And that touched my heart. That's the second time, a pair of moccasins were given to me that way as well, from the Karenann woman up there as well. So it's very touching to see what it is, or, the biggest thing you could give someone is a bundle of sticks. May they always have fire, things like that. And so one of the other, things is I'll never forget is she gave me this case, kind of a briefcase, soft cloth covering, but it was for all my biofeedback, all my computers, and to do all the biofeedback. And she said, Karen, brings back our star nations. She brings back our bear medicine. And she's one amazing, medicine woman. I'm like, whoa, cool. That's really nice. So I've had the ability to actually, stay with the Sinaiacs and live with them for months, actually, and live right, in the cabins, in the lodges, in the longhouses, in the pit houses. And that's an experience, not too many people probably have ever really seen or experienced. So if you haven't even seen what that is, I'm actually going to show you that, because it's so important that, we learn from the local people. There's a big difference between originals and aboriginals. And when you start getting into some of the different ways that we have for protecting food, land, water, children, everyone's doing their best with what they have at this time. And I think that's another thing that people need to definitely remember. So one of the things I'm going to show you here will be actually one of the things that we do have is who are the local tribes here? Who are those local people? Where are those local waters? That's going to be part of this important discussion today. And so one of the things here, I'm just going to share a little bit here if you're just joining. This is like one of the areas that, I'm in. And so you should know that the actual tribal maps of where you are located worldwide. This is not just, start here. And so one of the very amazing things that we see when we start looking at that is the Sinaiacs lands, like I said, are basically most of the BC and basically going into what we're looking at. And this was actually something that Therese, that just passed away, did, is the whole invisibility that, these people were just declared, extinct. And so Therese, that just passed away, and Marilyn was actually the local matriarch here. So this is really important. They've done books, they've tried to educate. And one of the interesting things is that most of the different people, Tartarians that are here, sometimes people call Russians, they might also call Doukhobors, or they might also be called, Ukrainians. But this whole area in here is really, really a large area. So you can see how big it is. If you guys think all the way to, you think Alberta and Jasper National Park and close to Banff and Revelstoke, it takes a huge, large area moving into there. As you can see, it goes right into that Kootenay Forest and stuff there into the Colville. So just wanted to extend my, thanks and gratitude, because a lot of people have never seen, what the type of protection that it takes, because right up there at the very top is actually where all the waters start that go all the way to over the border and out to the ocean, through Spokane and Portland. And so this is a big job that, a lot of, the women are sitting here protecting, and a lot of people like Marilyn and other women in here for protecting the land, the waters, and the trees have been put into jail many times. And it is still ongoing in many areas here in what you think of Western BC. This is probably a forefront that a lot of them are getting thrown into jail. So, Dream Dust is here. Hi, Karen. I hit just right. You're so informative and interesting, and Healing Touch is here as well. So one of the things I want to talk a little bit is getting into water, and water is really, really important. As you can see, my plants are doing actually fairly decent. They get fed with spring water, but more importantly, they get fed with restructured water and imprinted water that I talk into the Genius or other biofeedback, so I can do it directly, put my hands on it, but I can also use my voice to bring in different nutrients and restructure the water through biofeedback. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I want to talk a little bit about some of my favorite books here. We're going to go from A to Z, so don't hesitate. I can see some of the things in the chat room at the same time, so don't hesitate to ask if you have any questions or you want me to review anything. I'm happy to do that, and we can look some of this up together. So one of the most important things I can think of is one of my favorite books, and that favorite book is called Water and Salt, The Essence of Life. It's by Barbara Handel and Peter Ferreira. Now, this is something, and again, you have to go by it, but this has got a few pages on here if you're part of the archive.org groups. But anyway, in here, this is an amazing set of books here, because people have no idea just how important water is, because it's actually the origin of life for us. It is what biochemistry or what alchemy really is, what biophysics is. It has its own life energy, chi, prana, whatever we want to call it. It has got its own spirit, the spirit and the elementals of the waters. There's the health aspect, there is the disease aspect, and then we can start looking at food with how much percentage of water or healthy water is in there. It's an incredible, extraordinary element. And then we could talk about the movement of water, just like, Bruce Lee said, be like water, my friend. In other words, be able to adapt and flow. Water coming through pipes in cities and towns and whatever that go through these, disgusting pipes now and into plastics and everything else where they used to have copper, that would heal you and be antibacterial. You are just getting basically discharged dead water. And so you can study some of the different people. I loved actually learning a lot. David Avocado Wolf, chocolate or not, he's actually one of the leading experts in hydrology and water, and set up with Daniel Vitalis and some other people something called findaspring.org, which is a local map of all the different healthier waters in the world. And of course, they're getting shut down, so you need to take a look and read the comments. And usually, but within about probably an hour to hour and a half. So I go once a month and I fill up, and I get, 20, 30 gallons, for the month. I always carry at least 40 gallons here. Always have at least 6-8 containers, just minimum. It's just common sense. And so some of the healing properties that we have of those waters also extends to the quality of the water. And when we process the water, and I've got different things in here we'll talk a little bit about, that water and salt are basically the white gold of the earth. It's the building blocks of life. And we can go from very easy from that white gold to something poisonous just by not knowing the difference there. So one of the things we want to talk about here, also the creation of life, is a whole symbiotic study in itself here. And we'll talk a little bit about making your own soleil at home and various things of doing water, or what I call hydrotherapy. Even though I'm a colon hydrotherapist, I have so many different forms of water therapy. It's ridiculous. So a lot of people are finding stuff like using neti pots, which you can put in salt water and a drop of lemon essential oil or some eucalyptus essential oil. You can make a soleil bath, which is obviously putting in for cleansing and detox. How many of you guys have done the detox baths? Right now, people should be doing it at least 2-3 times, if not 4 times a week. You get the water just as hot as you possibly can, and you throw half a cup to a cup of your favorite salt in there. I like to use Atlantic, things like that. Brittany, some people use real salt, whatever it may be, or combinations of salt. I actually have a salt shaker with about 10 types of salt in it. And it's got everything from black salt to red salt to volcanic salt to Bali salt to North Atlantic salt to even bamboo salt, which is a 7-time solar processed type of salt. Black salts, all sorts of things are available here. And so salmiak, things like that. Those could be thrown into the bath with Epsom salts. They can be thrown in with clean baking soda. And, again, some people put in some alfalfa pellets, or they'll put in a couple tea bags. How many people have thought to put in some detox, just tea bags in, like a potpourri? Those are really great things to do. And so all those things, and I've been using Soleil wraps here, and I'm going to show you actually what I've been doing, because if you've been following what happened to me in the last week and a half, I actually basically broke the bones in my wrist. And so I went to a hot spring, and I got a little too close to someone that was probably had been sleeping with people that were injected. And it was a combination of the two things, the hyperthermia and getting way too close. And again, people don't always disclose the way they should be disclosing, and they hold things back. So I'm very clear when I'm saying about not injected, not putting up your nose, haven't been sleeping in with anyone. And again, some people are very hesitant. And because of that combination, I went unconscious. And when I went unconscious a couple times and refused the 911, I may add, is that basically I broke the bones in here and also hit my tailbone in the back of my head. So those are things that we need to be aware of. And so I'm going to teach you actually how to use salt and water and some of these different things in here. You can use also muds and stuff like that. And it's really, really important, especially a lot of these diseases, you can actually start dealing with things from enemas to whatever. So this is a really important book. So if you have the opportunity to get it, I would suggest you do that. That Soleil is so important. And it doesn't matter, even in the back of it, there are so many things people have been misdiagnosed with, all sorts of things. So you can read up on it, oral health, everything else, eye washes, all sorts of stuff. So just a wealth of information. And I think you would really, really enjoy taking a look at something like that. So if you have the opportunity, please take a look at it. There's also some stuff Barbara Handel and others have put onto YouTube and put things in there for people to learn about. And this is so meaningful. I just like water is like one of my favorite subjects. I could sit here and literally talk, and I have for weekends and stuff, and done entire workshops and stuff with people. And it was amazing. I remember being in Saskatoon, and I went to go take a look at the water treatment plants. Very, very important. And the sewage waste management. I mean, it's just so terrible what people are doing. They have no idea how to look after things. They put more chemicals, more biosludge, and then they have the audacity to put it onto our food systems out there. I was just blown. And I could see what they were actually doing. There were sigils that are, we'll just say, not positive. And so when you start realizing what they're doing, how these things have got meaning, very important. So one of the first things, most people have heard of is obviously usually Dr. Emoto. If you're starting down the water sort of thing, everyone usually starts hearing about, have you seen Dr. Emoto's water experiments? So I thought if you weren't aware of it, we'll talk a little bit about it. And I'm going to have you just take a look at some of the things that you can be going through and to use these things. And if you look above on the rerun or earlier, you'll see that I put about 8 or 10 basically references. So everything that I'm actually talking to you about, there will be a link in the chat and below after this uploads today. So anyway, it's great to see you guys here. We're really happy about this. So let's take a look at a few more things here. So how many of you guys know who Dr. Masaru Emoto is? I always think it's funny because actually I know who he learned from. Her name was Chandini LeRae. So I don't know why people take credit, but when they first went on tour, he was learning from her and was all through Europe before, all the books and everything else came out. That came later on. So, I know where he got a lot of the original information from in teaching some of this because it's, life-changing. So Dr. Masaru Emoto basically started doing experiments. He was a Japanese author, researcher, photographer, and they started doing water crystals. And one of the other people that's been doing a lot in the last couple of years, her name is Veda Austin, and we'll look at some of her stuff as well. But when you look at Dr. Emoto's work here, basically water has got memory, and it has, from like where I live at a great glacial lake, it has immemorial, eternal water memory. In other words, it's been here since it has a frequency or a memory, like a crystal, like a computer chip. So you can download things. And that's why it's really amazing to be in here. So if you have the ability to take a look at this, what he actually found in his experiments here was that basically once you started actually taking water and talking to it, or bringing it from different areas of the world and spoke to it in a loving manner, the water would start forming different crystals. And when you actually started talking to it with negative things and being actually, there's swearing, and it didn't matter, almost, and it's always better if you're going to do your own water blessings to do it in your mother's tongue rather than English. But even in the English they would even also use like pictographs as well. And that's what Veda Austin's has been doing. So they did kind of a freezing technique, and that's basically what they did. They would look at this and then they would unthaw it and they would put it under the microscope. So this was something that was really pretty amazing. And that we found out not only did the water have memory to it, but it was like amazing what was going on. And so this was in a movie called What the Bleep and Down the Rabbit Hole. And I remember looking at this back like 20 some years ago. And actually, even today, there was something that got re-put on the show called Inspired. And so they actually started talking today about even Greg Braden. It was, again, using sounds, vibrations, and watching bladder cancer disappear within minutes. So we're going to go just look at the water here. I'm just going to touch briefly on it because I think it's important that, when people start looking at what's available, what we can be doing here, and you will see some pretty amazing stuff. So let's look at Dr. Emoto here, and we're going to see some of these water blessings because it's pretty amazing. So let's just take a look at Dr. Emoto for a second, shall we? I always find that fascinating, that never ceases to amaze me, the power that we have. And inside us, as we are basically a large majority, over 70%, again, said water. It depends. You are what, not necessarily you eat and drink, but it's what you assimilate, what you absorb. And so those are really, really important points to take a look at. And the experiments that were done, I've done similar things where I actually took the spring water and then I put it on the plate and then with my biofeedbacks, and then I would feed it to the plants. And all of a sudden, all these plants and vines that were actually coming down, all of a sudden started going and vertically. I'm like, what? This is supposed to be a vine, but yet it's got vertical shoots. So developed its own pathway. And that's the difference in also using spring water versus reverse osmosis or something else, or distilled, you know. So very, very important on that. And one of the things too, you know, a lot of people, like I said, if you haven't seen also some of Veda Austin's techniques, this is an amazing thing, is that basically in using water can actually pick up not only pictures, but as you can see, it can restructure and recrystallize. But this is some of Veda Austin's look here, which is just amazing. Nice to see you. Daria's in here too. Great to see you guys today. So we're going to sit here. I'm going to screen share. Let's look at Veda Austin's information too. Really important. Let's take a look here. I love Veda Austin. You really should take a look at a lot of what she's got here. So let's take a look. Now that I think is actually amazing. And that is one of the things that we were taking a look at here. And like I said, Veda Austin is a whole entire study. I just love it. She was just on Robert Grant a few months ago. And I think that is just an amazing talk that she gave. And so if you haven't taken a look at that, and Dream Dust was saying, I got Petri dishes so I could try some of the frozen water experiments. One of the things that I did years ago, like, 10, 15 years ago, when I was doing biofeedback and playing with different orgonite and stuff that I was developing, was I actually took these waters and I put them into ice cube trays. And you know what? They all started going upwards vertically. Okay. I didn't have any flat ice cube trays or anything that kind of, after a while gets a little pitted. It actually was going up and getting the peaks right on them. So that is something that's really pretty amazing to see. And so a lot of stuff, like I said, in here is to take a look at some of the stuff that Veda Austin has been doing. She's doing this basically crystallography, and she's unlocking all sorts of things in the water, the hydraulics, and that water is totally alive here. And so one of the things she did is even doing hand imprints and putting people's hands and stuff like that. And so she's just a wealth of information. So if you have the chance, I'm just going to show you one of the things to take a look at here is Veda's got some amazing stuff. And she's also on Facebook too. A lot of these people, after I get to see some of the stuff that they're doing, I think this is pretty cool. So let's just take a look at this here. One of her fascinating things. And there's so much all these ancient codes. And this is an amazing one. I am going to put it in there because Robert Edward Grant is just amazing too. But let's take a look at actually this information she's giving here.
So I was like, oh my God, I put my hand in, took out the fluff and thought, oh, I wonder if my hand will have any impact on the water's memory. But for 1 year, I froze water solid, and I am absolutely amazed that I got the kind of imagery that I did, because it's so unlikely, actually, now that I know how water freezes. But when I took it out, there was an imprint, very, very clear imprint of a hand in the ice that was like an x-ray of my hand, and it really blew me away. And then my freezer became my most used household appliance, and one thing led to another. So I was like, oh my God, I put my hand in, took out the fluff. And
so those are some really cool things you might want to take a look at and experiment with. Now, one of the things I've been using forever has been different things, let's say, to do with the water, and using different what we call remedy plates. Okay, these are called multi-wave oscillator plates. And you can put crystals on, you can put essential oils on. These are all the things I've been imprinting for my broken bones and stuff. But very simply, you can actually put water on, and you can actually put on some salt. So whether you've got some Celtic or Brittany salt like this, or this is something a little different like I talked about, it's actually a bamboo salt. And so a lot of people, this can make a huge difference from some of the different things that you're looking at. And so in here, what I can do is do the biofeedback and put my voice in there and convert my voice actually into sound or light or magnetics, or do all three actually, which is kind of a cool thing. So a lot of times what you'll see is we will also put in, basically these are light. You can do different light and sound and magnetics and put them around a glass of water here and start actually imprinting sound, light, and magnetics. So these are the different kind of tools that I like to actually play with. And you never know. Oh, someone's saying happy birthday. Yeah, I had a special arrival date. My mom would say I arrived on January 19th, 1964 on someone's Gregorian calendar. But as tribes like to look at the solar calendar and the Aztec and stuff like that, and all sorts of things. So thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I had a lot of stuff here. It was pretty interesting. So one of the things in here as well as we get into the water, I've talked a little bit about using biofeedback and doing the sound in here. But one of the other people that I just absolutely love, like once you get into looking about voltage and water, one of the things, how many of you guys know who Dr. Jerry Tennant is? We're going to take a listen to him for just a minute, because we are batteries, and that water and salt is actually the spark of our lives. And so we're going to take a look at what Dr. Jerry Tennant, I have all his books here. I think it's absolutely amazing. And he's basically got stuff going that basically everything is voltage, right? So those are one of the things that we want to take a look at, is that this is the healing is voltage here. So we're going to take a look at that, and let's go see what Dr. Jerry Tennant has got to say for us. Because if you haven't seen him, he's another one again that we want to take a look at and, get you guys aware of some of these things you can study on your own time. Nice to see you. Infinite Awareness is in here. And basically Brent's in here too. So, and we'll talk about, urine therapy also, too, with different things. Eyes, we can use water, we can use ghee. You can also use dripping water on foreheads, enemas, all sorts of stuff. So there are all sorts of ways we can be using this. Let's just take a look at Dr. Jerry Tennant here for a second. I just love Dr. Jerry Tennant. It's one of my favorite ones. So all these links are in for you already.
And what that means is that it's 1.618 times the diameter is 1.618 times the height and so forth. And any place in the universe where there is something that's golden mean, or in the shape of platonic solid, it will cause implosion of scalar energy. So because our DNA is golden mean, then scalar implodes into it and gives it its charge so it has the energy to do its job. So then we have our muscles then are stacked one on top of each other in a very specific order, like stacking batteries in a flashlight. And so surrounding the stack of muscle batteries, we have a substance called fascia, which is very much like a stocking. And of course, fascia is that shiny stuff you see when you carve the Christmas turkey. Now, the interesting thing about fascia is that fascia is a semiconductor. So what in the world is a semiconductor? A semiconductor is a collection of molecules arranged in such a way that electrons move through it at the speed of light, but only in one direction. So we have then this continuous stack of fascia going from our toes up to our brain, or from our fingers up to our brain, and surrounded by this stocking, which serves basically as the wiring system for the body. So we have then the stack of muscle batteries surrounded by the fascia, so that every organ in the body has its own battery pack. Because every organ in the body has its own battery pack, then we have the ability to isolate, measure that voltage, and figure out why that organ's malfunctioning. Now, a stack of muscle batteries is what's been called an acupuncture meridian. So an acupuncture meridian is simply a stack of muscle batteries. Now, so this is an example of an acupuncture meridian called the spleen meridian. And the spleen meridian, oops, go back the other way. There you go. So the spleen meridian starts down in the big toe, goes up the inside of the leg, and then it goes, there's a special branch, as you can see, goes over to the female genitalia. Then it goes around the back where it gets the adrenal glands, the spleen, and the pancreas. Then it goes on up into the neck and makes a loop and hooks into what's called the stomach circuit.
Daughter's wedding is in a month. I don't want us to look like Beauty and the Beef.
Darling, relax.
There's a lot to be said for not having advertisements. Let's go back. Jeez.
The stomach
Can't stand
circuit
that one.
gets the macula of the eye. So by the way, if anybody has macular degeneration, it's because you have low voltage in your stomach circuit. It powers the frontal lobes, which is the thinking part of your brain. Then it gets the thyroid, the breast, the stomach, the male genitalia, and then back down to the big toe. So it makes a loop. So voltage coming from our arms and our legs, and they come up to these lateral terminals. And then from those lateral terminals, they go to this center one, and then it starts looping around the body. And then as it loops around the back, it has the option then of going out and attaching to the ganglia that are up and down the spinal cord, which we call the autonomic ganglia. And then from the autonomic ganglia, it goes to every organ in the body. So that's the human body's wiring system and battery pack system.
Now, one of the important things in there, and I'm just going to bring in, is what is the difference that we are seeing here as we are basically batteries?
The voltage inside the cell that the cell needs to do its business. Now, I also mentioned to you that because of the Krebs cycle being able to recharge 38 of these ATP batteries for every unit of fatty acid you put through the Krebs cycle, that's only true if oxygen is available. If oxygen is unavailable, then for every unit of fatty acid you put through the battery charger, you only get enough electrons to charge up 2 batteries. So it's a bit like having a car that goes from 38 miles a gallon to 2 miles a gallon. Your cells become very inefficient. Now, in addition to having inefficiency of the intracellular voltage, we have problems with bugs. Now, the body contains perhaps 1 trillion bugs of various kinds, and the majority of them are suppressed by oxygen. But as oxygen levels begin to drop because voltage drops, then these bugs wake up. And the first thing the bugs want to do is have lunch, and they want to have you for lunch. Now, bugs don't have teeth that they can take a bite out of you, so instead they put out digestive enzymes to dissolve your cells so they can get the nutrients. So think about having a sore throat. The strep bacteria are on your tonsils having a picnic, and they're having a good old time, but you have the world's worst sore throat. You have a headache, you have a fever, you have vomiting, you have diarrhea, your joints hurt, you're having a miserable day, and it's because the bugs are having their way by putting out these digestive enzymes to get their nutrients out of the cells. Now, one of the things is that as voltage and oxygen drop more and more, these microorganisms lose their cell membranes. So they become what have been called cell wall deficient organisms, or stealth pathogens. One of the problems with that is, first of all, you can't culture them. Secondly, you don't see them with a standard microscope. You need one of these fancy microscopes called phase contrast or dark field microscope. And these bugs then put out various toxins and began to damage the local tissue. And often what we call an autoimmune disease is simply these bugs having their way with your local tissue. So as they put out their toxins, you get the signs of inflammation. And
so once you get the inflammation, and Dr. Tennant is actually quite well known. He's actually one of the few holistic that actually knows all about dentistry, because he's a dentist. Okay. All the teeth, all the volts. And these are actually, when I've gone to a holistic dentist, they actually have like a biofeedback machine similar to mine, but with a voltmeter attached. And those can actually measure to see the actual voltage of each particular tooth and meridian. So as you get into holistic dentistry and you realize that every tooth in here is connected to an actual organ, it makes a huge difference here. And so these are some of the different holistic charts here that you might want to take a look at. Anyway, this is a wealth of information. I'm sure you're probably going to enjoy him. I have every one of his books because I think for ages, he's one of the few people that knows what it is. And that's right. So a lot of these things are really, really simple. And so one of the things I just wanted to show, there are also different devices. I'm not a big one. Everyone always asks me, I have been on the road and I still live with the Kangen people 15, 20 years ago when they first start bringing some of these out. And one of the things, I'm not the biggest thing on having to restructure water in that way. I prefer to use spring water and allow it to do its own thing. I can always address things by putting hydrogen peroxide in. We can put in, MMS and different things, different salts. And one of the things that's really important, actually, one of my clients was just talking about that. She said, I've got the salt and I've been putting it under my tongue because I heard how it starts the ATP process. And that is true. Putting a couple crystals underneath the tongue to start with is great. However, what you really want to do is put some of it into the water. Even if it's a couple crystals, a lot of times what I'll say is take about a quarter teaspoon of salt and put it in some warm water and put it in right away. And actually, I will put salt on when I'm going to actually dress my hand today, which I'll show you how I did that. A lot of people are very curious, like, why am I not in a cast? Because I can't access things with a cast, as opposed to putting a tensor bandage on and being very, very careful and seeing what's happening. There's still some residual, as you can see, all the different bruising after a couple weeks here, but it is going away. And you can definitely tell the difference from, tendons and ligaments that have been, torn, ripped, bruised, sprains, versus when you actually fracture, actually break a bone. And you can tell that very easily with some of the different tuning forks. But even with the biofeedback, I can see where the acupuncture point is actually disturbed. So one of the things, too, a lot of people are really into is getting into what is called hydrogen water. So this is actually, if you haven't seen these are actually called hydrogen water bottles. And they actually, within a few minutes, you can get fairly expensive ones. And even these ones have been known to make a difference. So you can actually I put the spring water in here, and you'll see it actually start changing, and you'll see it actually start bubbling here within a few seconds. So those are kind of cool. It will do its little thing. Looks like a lava lamp for a little bit, but we can certainly use that. A lot of people are using hydrogen waters or mega hydrate that Dr. Patrick Flanagan used to have. A lot of people do that. The other thing is to always add in some essential oils like lemon, lime, whatever else you want, and spike it up a bit. So those are some very cool things. So we'll see how people develop and start experimenting with things, because that's how you learn how to start working with this. And one of the things that I have done as well is I like to experiment with some sound. So let's see, what is the field of semantics doing? And what are some really cool things we could be doing with sound? So I thought, let's take a look at that. This video is called A Crazy. Well, we can actually look at that too for a second. Let's see what happened. Before we go too much further, I want you to start thinking why we're using headphones, or if you haven't been injected, why we can use magnetics or lights. Why are we doing it on both sides in the ears, or both wrists, or both feet? Why are we doing that? Because when you use tuning forks, and especially whatever it is, you should have two of the same rather than just getting things. So, get a couple in there, because you just saw what's happening there. And that's, by the way, how we can identify that our biofeedback machines work, because we have them all on all the different, audio and voltage and oscilloscopes and stuff. So we know that's how our biofeedbacks are working, all of them. And I'll show you a couple ones you can try out for free this week. Coherence, bioresonance. That's the same thing as doing binaural beats.
The goat is back.
That's great. We should be able to get rid of those things one of these days, hey? That's why I like having toys like this and biofeedbacks. Everything has a frequency and a resonancy. So this one's working at 119 hertz. Moving simply by the sound. Isn't that cool? Off the speakers. Very, very important. Now we're going to get into the frequency. Remember what we're doing to you, to the water, to the blood, to the bones, everything. And this is the cool thing about using biofeedback, because we can program in these different frequencies You can see the different wave forms and type of forms that we can do. So now, adding in not only sound, but light as well. Extremely low frequencies, 29 hertz here. Now let's watch. Once you start getting into about 28, 29 hertz, look at the spirals. And that's what we're doing between the headphones or between the magnets on your hands or your feet. We're restructuring the water, and this is how we're starting to get things cleaned up, loosening up. I just love these. This is so cool. And there you see just the simple things of what we can do and how important that is. So if you haven't seen, that's actually, if you can imagine when we're applying those sounds and stuff to you, what we're actually doing. So it's the same thing if I grab, let's say, a couple of the tuning forks here. Learned to really be ambidextrous again these days, but in here is using those. That's 272. As we go down in here, we're going to go to 141. All those things are really important, and that's why you can go on different parts where the bones are. Okay, you can also do kind of basically another thing is like a TENS pen. So one of the things I've been doing is essential oils and going on these areas here, and hard to see, but there's actually a little spark that comes in. So it's like an electrical TENS, but without the major pain of that. But it feels not that bad. It's just like a little mosquito. But anyway, those can be really, really helpful. Now, one of the things when we've gone into that, and this is all the different things I have for waters, by the way. And I've got everything I've plated from spring waters all over, from Canmore to Petrovka to out here to doing what I call, those are my holy waters, by the way. And to do quantum sound restructured and to doing water blessings. To water, I've actually gone over and just blessed, or gone to the lake or the glaciers and just blessed. So I actually imprinted those as well. And also, you know, putting rose waters and different things like that. So these are all different kind of sacred types of waters I've put in. So why don't we just take a listen to them for a second and see if you can feel them. So there is a frequency or a sound of water. So the waters are simply put onto the plates. We captured the essence over all the different kinds of water I've experimented with, and then we feed it back to you. So this is something that's very, very fun to do. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So what else can we do now, right? So one of the things I did when I was working with Lorraine Andres at True Health Canada out of the Okanagan, and she's an amazing, not only does live blood cell and dark field microscopy, we do hair tissue and stuff there, but we also are experimenting. And she was also a registered nutritionist. And so when I got together with her, I was doing biofeedback, oils, massage, colonics, you name it. I probably did it. Iridology, Ayurvedic, face reading, tongue reading, you name it. We did it. Besides the kind of Reiki and all that kind of matrix energetics we were going in here. But once she saw what I was doing with the biofeedback, and then we came in and I had the doctors take a look at this. Well, they were blown right away. And so I phoned Dr. Robert O. Young and I said, Robert, can you come watch something for about an hour? I need you. Right. So a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I said, you got to see what we've done. So we actually took the blood out of people, and then we did the biofeedback, and then we did the blood again. And it was way better, as you saw, similar to what Dr. Tennant was doing. But then I got another aha moment. I said, let's do the water and give the water to the client. Instead of giving herbs and everything else, let's just imprint this, because then this becomes basically through radiesthesia, through radionics and radio waves and cymatics. Now my voice is going in, getting converted into a sound, into a note, into frequency, and then I can drink this. So what if I could imprint all the herbs and stuff and all the remedies in the world? And it was kind of like Anastasia, putting the seeds in your mouth for 9 minutes and programming. Then we could actually go and we could start programming this water. And that's what I did. And so then I got the most incredible results any of us have ever seen to this day, was actually using the water. And so this was actually exactly what I did. So you can always put your hands over the water. And I tell people, if you're starting out with some of these things, even putting your headphones over the water, right? Amazing stuff can happen. So if you don't have all these fun plates, and let me know if you want to get some. I know where I can get them really nice on sale right now. Anyway, so these act like speakers, and you can even put a couple of them, put water in between a couple of them. So I actually have what's called basically audio splitters. So I could actually have as many speakers as I want running the biofeedback and my voice in there as well. So I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. So, you know, I don't know why Trump is complaining about the Nobel Peace Prize. I think we're doing a little bit more here. But anyway, we should look at that. And then what does it do to the energy or the aura? And when you can start changing people's auras, this is a huge thing. You can bring the vibration through that water. And so one of the other things I did a couple years ago, and I'm all excited too. So if anyone's going to be in the Kelowna, Okanagan area, I'm going to be touring there for about a week and a half coming up at the end of the month. So the first week of February, if you're interested and want to get a hold of me, let me know, because we might be able to get together. You don't know, anything between probably Kelowna and Lumbia Vernon area. I'm going to be hanging out there for about a week or so. So one of the things in here, I just wanted to bring to your attention, we'll take a look at some of these incredible apps that you can use, because I use lots of them. I mean, I don't just use one. I have like about a dozen biofeedbacks in here, and nothing gets me more excited than trying them all out. So one of the things in here, and I left the link in there for you to look at, is through the Insight Health apps here. And this is an incredible one that we have here, and it's called the Water Harmonizer. And this, you guys, is, I think, under $50. This is an amazing thing that you can actually put in those solfeggio tones and a kaleidoscope of fractal images. And I'm going to show you what those fractal images look like in a minute. And basically using those two different healing principles can restructure water or any liquid or crystal, or even you for that matter. And so what happens is that we can actually go into this, and you will actually be able to taste the difference in the water. I always say to people, like, we do this a lot when I do my sessions with people from a distance on Zoom. I will have you drink the water, and then we will restructure it and do you, and then have you taste it. And you can usually taste that it's lighter, it's sweeter, and it's slicker. And there isn't anyone. I've done some actually from a distance when I was in Saskatoon to Atlanta, Georgia. And within 10 minutes of putting this on, the water started spinning like you saw in the cymatics. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. So those are some of the different things that you might want to take a look at. But virtually any one of these will work. All of these different ones that I have on links here, if it's something that you want to try, whether you want to look at water fractals or you want to look at any of the different ones here, essential oils, or anything along that line, we have a whole bunch of stuff there that you want to try. So if you don't have equipment, like I said, headphones will do it. You know, just get a pair of headphones or put your water glass right on the actual iPad or tablet or your phone. This will be something that you can definitely go into. So one of the other ones is even just doing Rife. Let's say if you've got a headache, you could put in headache or hormone imbalance, or you've got bone pain or whatever it might be. These are things where you can go at A to Z and then literally put it in, and you will be able to do that. So lots of stuff is available. And I can even do some, if you would like to have a quantum capsule or have a session with me, send me an email at clanmother13@gmail.com or on my Facebook, and that's clanmother with a K. If you want, you can get an Insight Quanta capsule. I'm able to give one for you to try out here. And what happens is that you will send your voice and your picture to me ahead of time. I will do a quick session and you get to listen to it for a week. So those are really cool, having your own customized tones that you can listen to. Otherwise, if you want, you can always download some of these and play with them yourself. But this is actually some of the really cool stuff that you guys might be interested in. And then you can restructure your water. You can make water and do it up for the entire month. So even just by doing a little glass like this or one of the different water devices, what can happen is that you actually can start then restructuring your own water, and then it will act, and you can seal it up, put it in a dropper and stuff like that, and you will have, like, instead of a homeopathic for about a week. Absolutely amazing stuff. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions in there. This is very cool. So Brett was saying I got 2 of those on a promotion sale 2 years ago. It's back to today. The other thing too is infinite wear. It is wow. It is very wowing, when you start looking at this. So let's take a look at something, let's say like the fractals, if, I wanted to go into that. So having to look at the fractals is pretty easy. So once we give you a playlist or whatever, and I add all these cool things and frequencies and tones into here, well, then we can add the fractals to it. So those are some of the options. Again, you can put it with headphones or put your water glass right on it, or your crystals, or salt. A lot of people, you could put your salt on it and put your salt in and your water, and then put that into your baths or your enemas or whatever you want. So those are some very cool options you might want to look at as well. So I'm going to show you, because a lot of people are like, I can't believe this is already healing as much as it is like a broken bone. It's just quite amazing. So one of the things in here is I've been doing, and I want to thank Janine. Actually, she sent me one of these playlists. So I was listening to Janine Strong. She goes, I know you're doing yours, but I want to help you. So she says, it can't hurt to have 2 biofeedbacks on you. I said, no, you're right. It absolutely is not going to hurt that at all. So a lot of times you'll see sometimes 2, 3 therapists will actually do it on their own. So one of the things in here is that with the biofeedback, I ran my biofeedback session in here, and I went in and I got everything that I needed, and I put my voice in. And again, I want you to think of the semantics, what you're doing here. So when you're actually going in and you are putting a voice in, remember the oscilloscope? That's what we're doing. And so that's a very cool thing where you actually get to see that, because it's going through you. It's going to come back to me. So that's all you're doing, is you're recording your voice on here, and then it's going to convert it into frequency. And that's one of the things here. So as I start talking and say, I really want to heal my broken wrist and my coccyx and my tailbone, and I hit the back of my head, right? So you can imagine in there, yes, and I went unconscious. So I want to be able to heal all these things, right? And so I've done that with my voice, and that's my intent. That's my affirmation. This is my vision board, so to speak. And so what it will do is it's going to convert that into the sound. So this is actually where you can get into affirmational work, right? And so you'll have to rewind. But the short version is I went to the hot springs, took too long in there, and got too close to someone that was graphinated. And I went unconscious, and twice. So, and I fell, and I broke a bunch of stuff. So those are the type of things, again, you can take your picture, do the sound, do the light, do whatever you think you need to. And you can then look at the healing aspect of it. So this was actually kind of like triaging what we're doing. Know why your energy is so low. Because again, that's what happens when we break things. There's breaks in here. And so what we're going to do is we are going to go to the next thing. And I am literally going to put all that water in. I'm going to put everything to do with bones and birch oil and everything. And, comfrey and bone knit once it gets into a place where it's ready to heal. People are telling me, go put bone knit on, but go put your comfrey on. I'm like, no, not till you get it into the right place, and not till you get inflammation down, right? I've done this enough times. I know all about broken bones, let me tell you. So one of the things in here is that you find out what is the energy, what is going on, and how can you best facilitate it. And what I did is I had this on for the first 3 days straight, and this is a wealth. It's got PEMF therapy, light and sound is being converted in here, and it increases the nitric oxide. So last time I broke my foot, it didn't take me 3-4 weeks. And you can see basically everything's looking really great, except that little part on the outside, again, with the skin, the plasma, and out there. But other than that, it's a great little aura there. Look how hot pink I look today. Anyway, so those are different things that we can go into the field. And so this is actually how I can see what's going on. And again, it's the right hand. You'll see that it's still dark brown here. There's a bit of a line here. So it's actually where this is the lowest energy in the whole body, is this whole thing right down. Okay, so that's how I can see it. It's nice and, pink up here, and there's some greens, but it's just like, and there's like a big brown spot here because it's still broken, or the energies are not going through quite as well. And so those are kind of the fun things that you can look at doing. And, like I said, we're going to put some stuff into here. You guys are going to get the resonancy of that too. And this is a great way to learn because, as I said, I don't need to go to the hospital. But everything that I need here, for essential oils to homeopathics to whatever, and I'm going to show you how I did it. It even says here I should have biofeedback sessions with Karen MacDonald, which is me. So, okay. And the other key thing is to be alkaline. So one of the things, that's what's coming up here. And so we're going to put in all those things I talked about with water and any kind of pain or any kind of bones or whatever we need to go. We're going to put all those wonderful things in, and I will be laughing, in a few minutes. So like I said, it's really cool. And now even the Genius has got a analysis report where it can actually create a, playlist if you want to be lazy, I guess. But let's say I wanted to create a playlist for myself. This is actually what it will come up with now. So if you're not sure, you've always got a backup. But, I find it's quite easy to do here. So one of the funny things, it says I need some Valerian root. And what's Valerian? It's like natural, Valium, right? Delta waves to get me to sleep properly, because every time I move during the night, I wake up during the night because it's painful, right? You can only wrap it up so many times. Basil, grounding, Dong Quai, serotonin boosts, all those things. Noje 6 in here, and how to do all this kind of thing. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool. We should stick them all in here. This is not a bad idea. So we're going to run those all in here, and we're going to just let this play in the background, which is kind of fun. So you guys are all going to hear it at a very minute level, but the actual YouTube will pick it up here. So we're just going to let it play back here. And I'm going to show you how to dress a rune here. So here it's going through and it's doing its little thing. Okay. I'll drop that down first. There we go. Okay. So we're going to let that play back here. So one of the things, very important, is to make sure what your pH is at. Because, of course, the minute I had a trauma, and that was severe trauma, it wasn't just hyperthermia, overheating. It's like a heat stroke. And I also, almost similar to seizure, right, went unconscious. Okay. Also vomited. Thank gosh it was just water, and didn't lose anything else. But I went unconscious a couple times, one inside and one outside. So as I said, it's very close that you've got to look at it. So again, seizure. And yes, I took water, and yes, I took all those things. But like I said, too close to someone probably, like I said, that was contaminated and graphinated. So one of the things very important is to get some sort of urinalysis strips. And of course, I went acidic. That's just a given, right? So I'm on pH happy caps. I'm on baking soda, and just getting it back to where it's getting into the alkalinity stage here. On that. So one of the other things that's really, really important is to make sure you've got the equipment to deal with it, right? And so back here, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. And yes, I've got my nursing stuff. I've got my blood pressure cuffs here. And I took my saturation. I took my heart rate, because you always have to watch very carefully when you hit your head or pass out or anything like that, or go unconscious, what's going to happen over the next 72 hours in case there's any kind of brain swelling. So those are just things I was like, I'm not going to talk to anyone in the ambulance because I know more than they do, really. And I'm not going to let them touch me, because we know what happened in the last 6 years to all of them. You can't be in those positions, in medical positions, pretty well without having that done. So what I did is I made a little frequency thing here, and I put it with on my biofeedback, and these have all been imprinted already. So I've got the water that's been imprinted. I have the essential oils. I have the salts, everything that's been imprinted. And so one of the things is to always take, I've got essential oils here and about 40 oils in one. And I actually put some DSMO as well, aloe vera gel and DSMO. And what we're talking about is water and salt, right? So one of the things you can go in is to do a little bit, even if it's just a couple of grains of salt. Okay. There's nothing wrong with putting a little bit of salt. It's going to dissolve. Now, one of the other things after I've got all these on, and you could put more stuff on if you've got pain for bones and stuff like that, peppermint and definitely birch oil. Birch is key. And I put every tree that I have, birch, cypress, fir, pine, whatever. And then the other thing, once you've got this, is to actually get a plastic bag and a hot, wet towel, as hot as you can get it. Okay. And then what I do is I'm going to wrap this on here. And then, like I said, we can actually go in and start actually using these kind of devices and let it start to doing its pulse thing. So once I have one of these, it will convert and start putting in the sound and the light of everything that I need into that broken bone. So there's something that's very, very cool. Or the other option, I could do this right now, is put it around my water glass here and let it do its thing here on the water and start having some fun with that. So those are some things you can do. And again, on here. So how many people have got knee things? Do you know, since I actually had this fall, where I broke my knee back in 2019, I actually can feel every fracture and 3 fractures in my knee. And I went, what is this? It's a bone thing that we're doing here, right? And that's where it comes into doing things. And so with bones and stuff like that, there's stuff like 64 hertz you can get, like a tuning fork that goes into 64 or a 128, or anything that's weighted is going to help. But the lower the frequency, the denser it is. So once we want to get into bones and stuff and physical, you want to get into 40, 50, 60, into that kind of thing. So there we go. And that's just going to sit like that for about 5-10 minutes. And this is the same thing when I'm massaging people. I massage them and marinate them. And then I put these hot, wet towels along their back and along each one of their feet. And so that's the other thing that's really important, like I said, is having that. And that is a form of salt and water and essential oil or herbal therapy that is now going to be in there for 5-10 minutes marinated. And then you can go in and stabilize it again. Okay. If I had done the casting and all that weird stuff that they would have wanted, right, I would not be able to do any of this. And you're stuck in that position and you don't gain the flexibility and everything else that you would need to do. And so these are something that are very simple, like I said, and just run it up. And like I said, if you've got wrist guards or knee guards or whatever you want, this could be something very easy for you guys to do. And there you go. Voila. Now you see I could be sitting here and then still playing with this even on this wrist yet. Okay. And those are very, very helpful things that we can be doing. So anyway, there we got a little bit of water, a little bit of salt, a little bit of everything today as usual. And then one of the other things I'm going to show you, I did a really great set of stuff and I sent it back. It was with actually on with Michelle Martin. And Michelle Martin is one of the top UK kind of shamans, but also used biofeedback. And one of the things that we did at BitChute, it was called Quantum Chit Chats. I don't know. I put that link in there for you as well. But if that's something that you guys want to take a look at, I'm sure you'll probably enjoy it. It was a wealth of information. I enjoyed doing that for, several months that we did that with Michelle. And we had quite a few people back then in there. So this is another one if you want to take a look at the Quantum Chit Chat. So in here, we also have got Michelle set up for us a Quantum Chit Chat Telegram group here. So some of the ones that we did do here that you might be interested in is actually we talked about consciousness. We talked about getting back into community, spiritual warfare, how to cleanse and detox. I was busy actually for a few months. Energetic warfare, electronic warfare, that kind of thing, TIs. Also doing herbal steam smokes, hair, the importance of hair and what it does. We talked a little bit of original customs, usages, and laws and bloodlines, the importance of that. I talked a little bit about live blood analysis and then law, things like that. And again, AI. And there's one of the ones that I did here actually on water as well. And also talking about the biofield. So a lot of this stuff that might be of interest to you. So there's some very cool things in here, and you can take a look at that because there certainly was a wealth of information. And those are things that you might want to take a look at because seriously, there is so much information that we had. And again, Michelle and I still pop into our group every once in a while as people find out about us. But like I said, there are things in here. I'll go through Dr. Emoto's work again.
Yep.
And then go right into all the different types, even what the languages, what matter means, what ma means, what all those sort of things
add
are.
A couple drops in here, it will turn your water alkaline.
And then we'll talk a little bit about the water in there. So if that's something that floats your boat, we have that there too. Okay, so I am going to be off. Actually, next Friday, I'm in transit to the Okanagan. So I'm going to be on the road for the next week or two. And so we may actually ship this. We'll see about Friday evening. I will let you know on my Facebook and Telegram and Discord and Twitter and X and all those things and LinkedIn and MeWe where we're going to be next week. So just because I happen to be on the road, we might see about just either doing it later or we might actually delay it till Saturday or Sunday. And we might have some special guests for you too, as I nail them in the Okanagan. So, and again, if you're in those areas and you want to hang out with me, let me know. If you want to do a session again, any of these sessions, or you have questions about any of this fun stuff, I love playing with toys, as you know, but anyway, you want to get a hold of me and you want to see for appointments or you have questions or anything else, I want to thank you for joining me again. I'm Karenann MacDonald, and have a great and healthy week.